There's the deputies.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Last night, Regent President Walsh called me and asked if I would substitute briefly this morning for him, and I said, yes, Mr. President, I would be honored. And he said, thank you, Raul. Should we start with the calling of the roll?
Regent Bartel.
Here.
Regent Bradley.
Here.
Regent Burmaster.
Here.
Regent Conley-Kiesler.
Here.
Regent Crane.
Here.
Regent Keane.
Here.
Regent Davis.
Here.
Regent Loftus.
Here.
Regent McPike. Regent Pruitt.
Here.
Regent Randall.
Here.
Regent Rosenzweig.
Here.
Regent Salas. Regent Seminis. Regent Smith.
Here.
Regent Spector.
Here.
Regent Walsh. A quorum is present.
Thank you. You've received the minutes of the meeting from August 2nd. They've been distributed to you. Are there any additions or corrections?
I have one question. That the title of my copy said regular meeting. Was that a regular meeting?
Actually, you're right. It should have said special meeting.
Yeah, I guess that's a small
Thank
thing,
you.
but as people look back, then I...
If we change that to a special meeting heading, we have a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second? Second. They've moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved. I will not give President Walsh's report. That would have been a different kind of a report.
That would have been a coup.
We do have a report on the July 25th, 26th meetings of the Wisconsin Technical College System Board. You've received that written report. Are there any questions or comments on that? The board's representatives are Regents Burmaster, Keene, Rosenzweig, and Smith. We have a presentation on the Wisconsin Technical College System Graduate Follow-Up Report. Regent Keene.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Each year, the Wisconsin Technical College System puts together a graduate follow-up report, which includes the placement of our graduates throughout the state by program and by salary. And I thought it would be interesting for the Regents to take a look at where these graduates are going. And so with that, I had asked President Walsh to agree to have it on our agenda for today. And I would like to introduce Dan Clancy, who is the president of our system, to talk a little bit more about this. Dan. Thank you.
Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Regent Bradley and members of the Board of Regents, for giving us this opportunity to speak to you today. As Regent Keene and newly elected State Board President Keene mentioned, we do an annual survey of our program graduates, and this is a very important survey that we conduct each year, in which we try to make an assessment and measure the success of our students in meeting not only their individual personal goals, but also the workforce development needs of the state. I hope you'll find our presentation to be informative, and hopefully that will lead to some further discussion. We'll give you a chance to ask questions at the end. At this time, I'd like to introduce one of my colleagues, Jason Chung. Jason Chung is our Associate Vice President for Student Development and Assessment. He'll walk through the report, and again, at the conclusion of the report, we'll have some time for questions. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and good morning. Appreciate the opportunity to give you a snapshot of our graduate follow-up survey. And in your materials, you have a copy of this PowerPoint, which really covers almost all of the ingredients that you also have in the published document that you have in your folder. I'm really going to only spend the time to touch on a handful of those pieces. Most of the graphics in that report are pretty self-evident. I'll just touch on some salient slides that we really rely on to give ourselves a picture of how our students and our graduates are doing. So I will be skipping through some of these that show up on the screen. Basically, we do this graduate follow-up survey on an annual basis. It's done by mail and then follow-up by telephone for all of our graduates. For this most recent survey, you'll see that we surveyed about 23,000 graduates, getting 16,400 responses which is a 73% response rate, which is quite good. There are a number of institutions and systems around the country that regularly try to follow their graduates. We're pretty proud that our colleges do a lot of hard work to get a 73% response rate. These days, that's really difficult to do, to get anybody to respond to surveys, since they have stacks of them always waiting in their mail. Give you a picture of the reasons that our graduates gave for why they came to the technical college. You'll see, as you might expect, that the majority of the reasons have something to do with occupation and employment. 38% said that they were preparing for an occupation. Many of these are younger individuals who are looking forward to just beginning their careers through education at the technical college. Almost a quarter of the respondents said they were looking to change jobs, change careers, and that's why they came to the technical college. 11% are already on the job, on the occupation. They wanted to keep moving along, and they came to upgrade their skills. About 17% had plans to continue their education after leaving the technical college. So it's a pretty fair mix. There's 5% for personal interests. Perhaps these are people who would like to go to school. We know people like that. But there's a pretty fair mix of reasons for coming, but as I say, most of them have to do with bettering their occupational prospects. I'm going to skip to the next slide, slide number 5. This is a very simple graphic that shows what the employment status of the graduates who responded to our survey are. 92% of the respondents reported that they were employed. This survey is done 6 months after spring graduation. So 92% of these respondents were employed, and 8% were in the workforce but still looking for work. There are a small percentage of graduates who are not in the workforce. That is, they're not employed and they're not actively looking for work, and those individuals are not reflected in this graphic. Of those who reported they were employed, you'll see in the column, the bars on the right, a little over 3/4 of those individuals reported that they were employed in an occupation that was directly related to the training they got at the technical college, which is certainly what we want to see. The higher that figure, obviously, the better. Moving to the next slide, we asked the graduates when they were employed in the occupation they currently are in. This is 6 months after graduation. So more than half of those, the respondents who were employed said that they moved in their current occupation after completing their technical college program. Another 20% got into their job while they were in the technical college program, and then about 23% actually had already been in their occupation before they started enrolling. These are individuals who are looking to move up in their current occupation. The last chart I'll show you is this one on employment location. This is a really important factor to our colleges. We asked our graduates who responded that they were employed, where they were employed. And as you can see, 87% of those respondents reported that they were working in Wisconsin. As you well know, individuals who gravitate towards technical and community colleges generally are those who really want to stay where they are. They already have, many of them are non-traditional, what we call non-traditional students. They're quite traditional for us. But they already have established roots in those communities. They may already be working. They're raising families. And so they really are looking to stay in their communities. And this reflects that. But also reflects that our programs are targeting available jobs in their communities. The bars on the right show that 73% of the respondents who said they were working in Wisconsin after getting their technical college degree or diploma were actually working within the district that they attended to complete their program. Now, that's all of the charts out of the collection that I'll talk about. I'll just talk for a minute about a table that I think you have in your packet, which is a top 20 table. I think you received a sheet that talks about the top 20 occupational programs in terms of enrollments. And then there's also a top 20 list of our occupational programs in terms of the highest median annual salary that our graduates reported through this graduate follow-up survey. So it's useful for us to have this very hard data about what our graduates are earning. I won't spend too much time on this, but I'll just point out that obviously you would expect to see some of the healthcare occupations that are in great demand on this list: associate degree nursing, some of the technological to technician occupations, cardiovascular technology, for example, radiographic technician are on this list. They pay good entry-level salaries. These are just the salaries that are reported by our graduates 6 months after graduation. So these are entry-level salaries. There are a lot of occupations that pay well in our technical, what we call our technical division. And occupations like instrumentation, working in various production facilities on instrumentation, and industrial engineering, biomedical electronics are rising fields which really produce very nice returns for our graduates. So there's more to that list, but I'll let you inspect that on your own if you have an interest on your own time. In closing, let me just talk about a little bit of the context for our graduate follow-up survey. This is a venerable assessment interest that we have been conducting for much longer than I've been with the system. This probably goes back 30 years, back to the days when they had to compile everything by hand and tote up things on little paper spreadsheets. It's evolved a lot in terms of the technology that's used to get this information, but the survey itself has not changed all that much. Fairly quickly, the salient questions that got what we wanted to know were pretty much decided upon, and the changes to the survey in recent years really have been just fine-tuning questions so that they are as clear to our graduates as possible. I kind of think of this graduate follow-up survey as the little engine that could in terms of our performance assessment. It's been here for decades. In the meantime, lots of other waves of performance assessment have come along, and now we are surrounded by a sea of performance indicators that we calculate, and we're doing data matching with your system, with the unemployment insurance compensation system, with DPI's data systems, with the National Clearinghouse. All kinds of sophisticated data manipulation is going on. But this survey still is a core piece of how we judge how our students are doing. Our colleges rely on it to, when they evaluate their own programs, they rely on this survey to see how the graduates are actually faring. It's used a lot by the colleges for career planning because it provides the most specific, concrete data about prospects for our graduates that we can possibly give them. And then many pieces of it are useful for public information pieces as well. We do have some challenges because graduates are harder to get a hold of these days. I referred to the stacks of mail that our surveys tend to get buried in. We do follow up by telephone, but people answer their telephone less. They're using their cell phones more. So we have some real technological hurdles to try to address in the coming years, and we do want to be successful at that because we do hope this graduate survey continues to have a long life. We really depend on it. Thank you much for giving us a few minutes to go over this, and if there are any questions, we'd be happy to try to respond.
Are there any questions of Mr. Chung?
I don't think I missed this. Could you talk about the college transfer programs at the technical college system? I see Chancellor Wiley is here. I'm familiar with the Madison area technical college program where there are 2 programs for students to enter and essentially be guaranteed enrollment at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Could you talk about that program, if there are other programs like that elsewhere in the system, and what one would see as the growth of those programs, and perhaps comment on the Madison area technical college program specifically? Sure.
Thank you very much, Regent Loftus. We do have 3 of our colleges that have currently the authority to offer what we refer to as collegiate transfer programs. Madison is one of those colleges. Milwaukee is the second, and Nicolay up in the Rhineland area is the 3rd college that has that authority. Those colleges have had that as part of their mission for many, many years. Madison has been working, and actually the other 2 colleges have been working with UW-Madison on this contract arrangement in which students would be guaranteed admission into the UW-Madison if they complete the program and maintain a 3.0 grade point average. I think that's one of the major requirements. This is a new development, but actually for many years our colleges have had good working relationships with the 4-year campuses and transferring students into those programs. So it's a long-standing program, one that has been very beneficial, I think, to both systems and the relationships between the 2 systems.
Well, Dan, can you give an idea of the growth in those programs? The impression is that the Madison program is growing quite a bit.
I don't have the data here with me. I think that there has been some growth, but I think it's been more steady in terms of its percentage of the makeup of the student body. In fact, there is a statutory limitation on those 3 colleges as to how many students can participate in collegiate transfer as a percentage of their total enrollment. It's a 25% cap is placed. So that was a requirement of the legislature. But I think the enrollments have been fairly steady in all 3 of those institutions. But I could certainly get you that information in terms of what the...
And they're all with UW-Madison?
No, actually, the relationship that's been recently established with this contract has been with Madison. But the transferability of these degrees go to all of the university campuses.
My interest is just seeing if students are voting with their feet, thinking about their pocketbooks. And this is an entryway into the UW system that is a lot more economical and a lot more flexible. And in the case of UW-Madison, perhaps much easier to get into Madison this way than others. So we'll look forward to that in the future.
Sure. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Regent Smith?
We talked a lot yesterday about increasing the number of students in our system, and I'm just wondering, in different ways to achieve that, just wondering where's the technical college system the last 4 or 5 years, as far as numbers and trends go, as far as the number of students we're seeing?
In terms of students into our system, our enrollments have been growing at record pace. In fact, we're now at an all-time high in terms of our enrollments in the system, over around 68,000 full-time equivalent students. If you were to go back 7 years ago, I think we're around 55,000 FTE students. So we've seen tremendous growth in our enrollments at all levels, especially in the occupational programs. Healthcare, in particular, has been we've doubled our capacity in our healthcare programs over the last 5-6 years. So enrollments are very strong, and it's really maintaining that growth is a real challenge for us. As the economy gets stronger, our enrollments tend to decline, which it is a reflection of the state's economy. Enrollments do vacillate as a result of that, but very strong.
Good. Regent Salas?
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment, and this goes back to the discussion that we had when Senator Goffman came here and was talking about the problems that we had, that he thought that we had in finding trained employees for the workforce in certain regions in the state of Wisconsin. And I pointed out to him about the nursing and allied health shortages and the need for additional resources. And as the presentation has indicated, not only have we increased enrollment in allied health in order to meet the nursing shortages at MATC and Milwaukee, we actually have a waiting list. And we need additional resources to be able to meet these needs. The other thing that I'd like to note is the success of the graduates of our program. Of course, I'm more familiar with the one at Milwaukee. Some of these allied health associate degree programs, of course, lead to or require that our graduates pass boards, or that is state board exams. And our graduates at Milwaukee Area Technical Colleges and other places score as high as any of the ones that are being offered by four-year institutions. So the quality of the training is compatible with any that is offered at anywhere in the state. If you'll see at the ranking, another point that I brought up when the senator was here, we were talking about another area of discussion. We were discussing Tabor, if you recall. But he was saying about all these $60 an hour welding jobs that we're wanting in certain areas of the state. And one of the points that I make, and you can see welding in there, in the rank of welding, the workplace in southeastern Wisconsin as elsewhere in the state of Wisconsin is changing. And the computer numerical controls and other technological changes that's going on in the workforce is really where the workplace, technologically infused workplace of the future is going. And again, we need for the legislature to respond to those changes and give us the resources to be able to meet those demands and respond to the changing needs in our workplace. And I just wanted to make those comments and follow up with the discussion that we had with the senator when he was here.
Thank you. Regent Keene, did you have a comment?
Well, I just really would like to thank Dan and Jason for being with us today to share this information. And I think it helps us as Regents see how we can build our relationships more between the 3 and 4 year system, because there are so many programs in place with technological skills that students are prepared to go on and complete their 4-year degrees. It's a term that's being used now. It's more like it's called upside down degrees. You may have heard that, where they would take their major first and then come on to a 4-year system to complete their degree. So just to see the opportunities that are available to us. And I appreciate everyone taking time to learn about this today. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Can I ask you a question?
Regent Walz?
This sheet that you handed out, the back sheet has the highest median annual salary. Is that of the entire group of people that are nursing associate degrees? The median salary is $44,000 in the state. Is that what that means?
That's of the newly hired graduates who responded to the survey. So these salaries are calculated based on the responses of the folks who responded 6 months after leaving the program.
Then, if I look at page 10 of the graduate follow-up report, are those numbers the same source? I'm just... that says 2005 technical graduates. These numbers seem higher than in the book, and I just wondered why.
The numbers on that sheet are specific occupations, like nursing. This would reflect the entire division of health, or the entire division of technical, so it would be all occupations, and that would be all graduates. So that would include those that are completing a 1-year diploma or a 2-year degree. So it's a wide range of programs and a wide range of degrees or diplomas that they accomplish.
Okay, the reason I ask is that our message is that people who graduate with a degree from any institution, or an advanced degree beyond high school, earns more. And our state average is $28,000, and Minnesota's $32,000. So in looking for substantive evidence of that, do we look at this page because it's more specific than page 10?
Yes. I think you need to look at both pages. I think the page 10 shows that initially starting out, that on average our graduates are earning somewhere in that $30,000 range, but there are opportunities in specific fields to earn much more than that, and that's what that second page is trying to illustrate.
Specific.
Exactly.
That's good information to have.
If I could just add, there is a complete list in the back of the publication that goes program by program, and it's divided into divisions. So you could find the healthcare, the pages that cover the healthcare occupational programs, and look at each individual program and what that starting salary was reported as.
Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd now like to turn the chair over to President Walsh. President Walsh, we've been able to pretty much stick with the agenda other than approving Regent Seminis's motion to eliminate tuition. Other than that, we're in good hands.
No in for the second on that.
And I apologize for being late. I will tell you that I was introducing the governor and the next president of the United States at a meeting, but I won't tell you who either governor or that guy is. And it is a guy.
Were they the same person?
No. No.
One come from New Mexico.
I'm not saying anything.
Is he in the paper?
Not for what I said. I did ask them to compare their respective contributions to higher education, and they didn't think that was funny. Next is the report on the July 5, 2006 meeting of the Hospital Authority Board. The written report has been provided. Are there any questions or comments? The board's representatives are Regents McPike, Rosenzweig, and Smith. Seeing none, moving on. Report of the July 14, 2006 meeting of the Education Communications Board. The written report has been provided. Are there any questions or comments? The board's representative is Regent Conley-Kiesler. Seeing none, move on. Report on the July 21, 2006 meeting of the Higher Educational Aids Board. The report has been provided. Are there any questions or comments? The board's representative is Regent McPike. Report of the President of the system, President Riley.
Thank you, President Walsh. A couple things to tell you about that have been going on recently. More than 50 research scientists and faculty from 10 of our UW campuses and 2 UW colleges put their heads together on a beautiful June day at a forum in Milwaukee to foster intercampus and interdisciplinary research recently. The goal was to learn about ways to collaborate on research by sharing expertise, equipment, or facilities. And the faculty were from fields such as biotechnology and genomics and chemistry and microbiology and others. The sponsors include WISIS, which is our system-wide intellectual property organization, the UW System Office of Federal Relations, the Great Lakes Wisconsin Aquatic Technology and Environmental Research Institute, which if you're swift you might have picked up, it turns into an acronym of WATER, the Water Institute at UW Milwaukee, and the patent law firm of White, Hirschbeck, and Dudek. Since then, colleagues in the Chippewa Valley have begun talking about a virtual research collaboration up there. Another group of faculty will meet next month in Stevens Point to talk about contributing to energy solutions to the state's biofuels initiative. That's a lot of commitment, promising ideas from our faculty and researchers to boost Wisconsin's economy, and we urge them to keep those ideas coming. A few notes from our campuses. It's been a banner year for UW Eau Claire in one sense. 4 UW Eau Claire graduates have received Fulbright Awards. Justin Van Ness, Jenna Cushing-Lubner, Amanda Hill, and Trevor Hagen will teach and conduct research in Spain, Belgium, Austria, and the Czech Republic. I think you know that the Fulbright program is highly competitive. It aims to build mutual understanding between the United States and the rest of the world at a time when that is as needed as it has ever been. UW Eau Claire has had 8 Fulbright grant recipients since the year 2000, more than any other UW master's level campus. So we congratulate Chancellor Levin Stankiewicz and his colleagues there for that good accomplishment. Continuing the international education theme, UW Whitewater's Global Business Resource Center has received a 5th straight Business International Education grant from the U.S. Department of Education. It's a 2-year grant worth $528,000. The grant will help establish a mentorship program, connect students with minority-owned businesses, conduct global market research and create solutions for minority-owned businesses, and develop online training programs. So we congratulate Chancellor Saunders and her colleagues on that. Nearly 1,000 high school students attended classes this summer on the UW-Madison campus, and if you're here in the summer and driving or walking or jogging around, you see lots of high school students on the campus, and it's great to see them. These students are part of the PEOPLE program here at the Madison campus, which I think many of you know is a partnership between Madison and the public schools. It identifies academically promising students from culturally diverse and economically disadvantaged backgrounds and provides them with ongoing academic support. Students who graduate from the program and are accepted at UW-Madison receive full tuition scholarships. 180 have been awarded so far. 94% of high school PEOPLE students, that is students enrolled in the PEOPLE program, go on to higher education. That in itself is a remarkable datum. So we congratulate Chancellor Wiley and his colleagues who work hard on that program. UW-Washington County is set to offer another collaborative degree this fall with UW-Oshkosh. This one will be a Bachelor of Liberal Studies with an emphasis in leadership development. This brings the total to 5 bachelor's degrees now offered on the UW-Washington County campus, this one from Oshkosh and the 4 others through UW-Milwaukee. UW-River Falls is joining several other campuses as part of a national study to track and encourage student voting this fall. UW-Eau Claire, UW-Oshkosh, UW-Stevens Point, and UW-Platteville are also participating in the Young Voters Strategies campaign in cooperation with the National Association of American Colleges and Universities. 80 colleges and universities in 30 states across the country are participating in this campaign. Their goal is to register 350,000 young voters in the year 2006. The project is being helped out by a $3 million grant from the Pew Charitable Trust. Similar efforts in 2004 helped to produce 4 million more young voters than in the year 2000. UW-River Falls itself is running its own nonpartisan voter registration and education committee called, quote, River Falls Votes, unquote. The campaign will, among other things, help students on the campus find information about voter registration and election issues, invite candidates to campus, possibly hosting a debate there, and work with the city of River Falls to make registration and voting at the campus polling place as efficient as possible. We'll hear also about additional activities from many of our other campuses as they support Get Out the Vote efforts in the coming months. I think these efforts are really vital to the future of American democracy. We know that our students now are volunteering, doing work in their local communities at higher levels than ever before. But we also know that they're pretty disengaged from the political process in many ways. That is, they don't necessarily see the connection between the work they do out in the wider society and voting and how politics drive what happens in a democracy. So efforts like these Get Out the Vote efforts are really important, I think, and I commend our chancellors and others on the campuses who worked on them and urge that we continue to push them in the coming months. It's my great pleasure now to introduce to the board our newest provost, who joins us most recently from the great state of Pennsylvania. He's the new provost and vice chancellor for academic affairs at UW-River Falls. Charles D. Hurt, who's over here, has joined us. Welcome. Dr. Hurt holds a BA in English Literature and Religious Studies from the University of Virginia and an MS and PhD in Information Science from the University of Kentucky and the University of Wisconsin-Madison, respectively. He also holds a certificate from the Center for Creative Leadership. He has published 5 books and over 50 journal articles, reports, and conference papers. He held faculty positions at McGill in Montreal and Simmons College and the University of Arizona and Westchester University in Pennsylvania. While on the faculty at the University of Arizona, he directed the School of Information Resources and Library Science, was the head of the Near Eastern Studies Department, and served as Associate Dean, Acting Dean, and Interim Dean of the College of Social and Behavior Sciences. He joined Westchester University in 2002 as Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, the largest academic unit at Westchester. Most recently, he was the principal investigator of a $1.4 million grant from the National Science Foundation, which is awarded to Westchester University for an information assurance center. So we welcome Dr. Hurt and to the UW system and to UW River Falls and wish him all success with us. Finally, I don't know if anybody has heard about or plans to see the new Samuel L. Jackson movie called Snakes on a Plane. Have you heard about it? What a concept. You can't bring water on, but I guess the snakes get on anyway. We thought we'd do our own little version of it here today, Snakes at a Regent meeting. Regent Davis, have you looked under your chair? No, just kidding, but do check out this slide. Courtesy of Chancellor David Wilson, we're calling this Snakes in a Printer. This is at UW Richland Center, and it happened during a demonstration in a reptile class for 4th, 5th, and 6th graders that's part of UW Richland's College for Kids. The boa's name is Shakira. She's about 6 feet long, and I guess they had her stretched out on a table, and she slithered behind the computer and never came out because she found a nice warm place to stay. They tell me that she has a double major in animal sciences and computer technology. The real good news is that no animals were harmed in the training of these future UW students, nor were any of the UW students. According to Marilyn Miller in UW Richland's Instructional Technology Department, the boa eventually crawled out on its own. But I'm not sure how many of our IT specialists at the Richland Center campus will be popping up the top of the printer soon to unclog the jam. We may have a problem with that. President Walsh, I have once again snaked my way through my good news items, and I'll turn it back to you for your usual venomous follow-up.
Well, the truth of the matter is I was defanged yesterday when I wrote a letter back to someone that was changed by, shall we say, cooler heads. I do want to make a couple comments, and I also want to, on the agenda, I'm going to move the education ahead of the physical planning because we have a time schedule. With your permission, Regent South.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We should be proud of what we did yesterday. We have passed and requested the smallest percentage increase of tuition in the last 25 years, while at the same time offering the state of Wisconsin a plan for the future, our growth, access, and affordability agenda. Now the very simple problem is to persuade the decision makers. And to that end, for the last couple months and a couple months going forward, I am going to be making presentations, and I promise you I will be less venomous. But on this agenda, I have talked to about 4 Rotary clubs in Madison. I traveled to Platteville and to Sauk Prairie. We've got some appointments up in Green Bay, 2 up there, and 1 in De Pere and Marshfield and Columbus. And we're going to send that message. And I should tell you that in the many appearances I've already made, it's clear that the people in the audience care a great deal about this system, the educational system throughout the state, including private. They're critical, but they love it. It's a tough love. And as long as we stay on message and they understand the simple cause and effect of what we're trying to do, their question is, well, why won't people agree? So it's our challenge to convince the decision makers. I spent last week 2 hours with Representative Nass. It was an interesting meeting, and it was fruitful, and it clearly, I think, provided some goodwill. We both served in the military together, and not at the same time. I'm a little bit older, but he appreciated the fact that I might have appreciated his concerns about the military and the issues involving Mr. Barrett. More important, but it was a a statement. It spoke volumes about some of our issues. And the reason I mention this is, while it was a good meeting, the next day I was interrupted from a mediation session, which if you're in my business, you can't get interrupted, especially when you're the mediator. But explaining to people in a dispute that I had to leave because Representative Nass was calling me, didn't go over very well. But I left, and I was informed that they were furious because the UW-Madison had issued a press release that kept them from issuing their press release. Now, it's not important to go into it, but it speaks volumes about the kind of level we're playing at in terms of messages. And it was a distracting message. It didn't have anything to do with our growth agenda, and I politely suggested that there were more important things. And we all got over it the next day, and not he, but a staff member informed me I had wasted at least half of the goodwill I had built up the day before. But it was good. It was a good discussion, and two people just disagreed, and we agreed to disagree. The second example I want to mention is that we need to be diligent with the facts. And I think yesterday was a good example. We all know that the University of Wisconsin-Madison is a competitive school for admission. Everybody knows that. Not every resident of the state can go to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We also know that we lowered tuition for non-residents at the other schools, not University of Wisconsin-Madison. And that we did so because we had been priced out of the market and had lost 900 students. Now, those two facts are juxtaposed as follows by certain politicians. They are, what are you doing lowering out-of-state tuition while at the same time denying access to state residents? And it's our job to politely point out that that's not what we did. And they always say, well, I didn't know that. But this is the world we deal in trying to persuade the decision makers to buy into our agenda. And I mention this because it's going to happen no matter what. They live in a different world, and a soundbite's more important to them than constructive dialogue, at least in front of the media. But the way to handle that is to keep pushing for the facts and keep trying to get our message out in a polite and positive way. And we just need to focus on the message of growth, affordability, and access. I think our challenge is not to be distracted by some of the things that get in the way, that make it better for a headline, but we've got to stay on message. And of course, at the same time, we need to be good shepherds of the public resources. We need to respond to problems and admit mistakes and fix them. We've done that, and I think that message is getting across. Finally, I think we have another opportunity, and that is we need to energize the business message that was presented to us in Green Bay and in Milwaukee. Those are business leaders that are happy with our initiatives, that are supportive of our initiatives. I've received, as you all have, letters. I've responded to every one of them. And again, in those letters, likewise asked them and told them that we're going to call upon them for support. And so we have that challenge ahead for us, and as long as we stay on message, stick to the facts, be positive, I think we can accomplish what we did yesterday, and we should all be proud of our first step. That's all I have.
President Walsh?
Yes.
I would just like to congratulate you for your effective response to the demands of the students yesterday, allowing them to come into the Board of Regents, and how you graciously provided for them a place in the discussion. I think it's very important for us to always respond to the questions and to the comments, concerns that our students have, and I think you handle it extraordinarily well.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Yes.
As always, David, you're quite the elegant, and I was going to say eloquent, but you're elegant also, leader. And I guess I would...
There's a dissent in the crowd.
And I absolutely 100% agree with you about what we need to do going forward, staying on message and listening to the business community, leveraging their support, et cetera, et cetera. Couldn't agree with you more. But I also think that, and our role, and not just having you do it, you Kevin, Mark, Regents Loftus and Rosenzweig, et cetera, that every single one of us has to step up, and for me, in a bigger way than I may have with my ambassador role. But I also think that what we heard yesterday provides yet another avenue that we need to have step up to the plate, and that is the grassroots community. And I don't know exactly how we do that. I don't know if that, but it looks to me like community leaders who are working with young people, encouraging them to go to college. It looks like parents. It looks like the average person in our state that cares also deeply about access to higher ed, affordability in higher ed, and so on. And I just think we got to, because when I think of some of the legislators that I know, yeah, it's going to be great to see Tim Sheehy come, and if that's who's going to knock on their door, but it's going to also be good for them to have some parents call them. So I just want to make that point, that as we build our strategy, that we need to keep in mind the grassroots, feet on the street component that is also, in some ways, depending on who we're talking about, much more effective at bringing it home. So I just want to make that point.
Any other comments?
I just want to say that we will, thank you for these comments. We will come back to you at the October meeting with some ideas for an advocacy campaign that includes all of this good advice. I think David will be working between now and then to sort of redo the Regent Ambassador program with the legislature, because we've had some changes on the board, we've had some changes in the legislature. We want to get that realigned and have all of you take a really active role going forward. And one of the things that David did that he didn't mention was that he and I had a chance to visit with the editorial board, the publisher, the editor, new publisher, the editor, and the editorial board for the Wisconsin State Journal about a week ago. We were there, I don't know, we were there for close to 2 hours, I think, as it wound up. They were very, very interested. We touched a very wide range of issues regarding the university. Again, some tough questions, but the overall tone was, I think, very, very positive and supportive of what we want to do with the growth agenda going forward. So we'll be doing more and more of that and ramp all that activity up in the coming months now that we've had your approval for both operating and the capital budget that we want to advocate for.
Okay. Going forward, report of the Education Committee, Regent Davis.
Thank you, President Walsh. I am pleased to report the summary from yesterday's meeting of our newly reconstituted Education Committee. Regents Simonis, Spector, and I, the veterans, welcome new members, Regents Crane, Keene, and Loftus, the neophytes, probably the last time they'll be called that anyway, to our committee. And we then immediately reached consensus on postponing the Education Committee planning discussion until October. There's a primary reason, which is that we all agreed that Senior Vice President Merritt would conduct an informal orientation meeting or meetings for our new members between now and October, so that we will all engage in the preliminary identification of priority areas and topics we'd like to address over the course of the academic year. We thought we ought to get on a level playing field in terms of knowledge about what our role is and what some of the issues are and how the processes work before we decide to go into planning. I suggested, and my colleagues agreed, that we would seek to pinpoint 2 to 3 areas on which to focus, so that at the end of the year we could look back and say that we truly accomplished A, B, and C. Item number 1, the committee then heard the presentation of 2 new academic programs, each of which received the committee's unanimous support. The first was the Bachelor of Science in Microbiology at UWM. The presenters made a strong case for this program, indicating the growing need for a trained workforce in Wisconsin's biotechnology industry, and outlining the extent to which a major in microbiology supports UWM's mission and strategic initiatives in biotechnology. Microbiology has been an option in the Department of Biological Sciences for some time, and our action yesterday constituted the upgrading of that option to an academic major, one which has been sought after by many students and faculty. This is a program which offers cutting-edge research opportunities to undergraduates and has a solid record of attracting diverse students and faculty. Item number 2 was the second program which we approved, was the Bachelor of Science in Health Sciences at UW-Stevens Point. This, too, is a program that comes in response to student and workforce demand. The Stevens Point region is home to 3 medical centers offering a host of healthcare services, and they need a trained workforce. At the same time, students want a major that will prepare them for the healthcare jobs in the region, as well as for graduate studies in other allied health fields like occupational and physical therapy, which, as many of us on this board know, increasingly requires graduate degrees. The health science major will do just that, prepare a greater cadre of students for undergraduate and then later graduate degrees in these professions, with strong advising and assessment and through partnerships with area healthcare providers. Moving along, we then tackled revised faculty personnel rules. Your Regent materials included 2 sets of revisions to faculty personnel rules, one from UW-Whitewater, the other from UW Extension. In both cases, we received excerpts of the proposed rule revisions with summaries explaining the complete set of changes. For both Whitewater and the Extension rule revisions, the proposed changes were predominantly minor, with the excerpted sections containing the more substantive changes. And of course, we were advised that complete sets of the proposed changes in the entire rules were available to us online. Both sets of revisions were approved by the respective faculty governance and the chancellors, and reviewed by UW Systems General Counsel. Dick Telfer, the UW-Whitewater provost, did explain that the documents inadvertently did not include the underlined sections which were changed, and he did review those with us. As we learned, Regent action is required only on faculty rules. Why is this important? Because the Extension rules both included faculty and academic staff personnel rules. The process is different for academic staff rules. Regents are normally sent these proposed academic staff rules. I'm only saying this because there's some of us in the room who don't know this, so for those who knew this, just kind of tune out. But at any rate, normally we'd get these academic staff rule revisions by mail and have 90 days to comment, object, or raise any issues that we might have. In the interest of expediency, we considered both faculty and academic staff rule revisions at Extension at the same time. And one more thing, we often act on these rules without discussion, but my colleague and Vice Chair of the Education Committee, Regent Spector, made an excellent suggestion that the committee agreed should be adopted. As we all know, these rules can be very difficult in wading through, and even with set summaries and excerpted forms, we may not have a clear sense of what it is we're being asked to look at and the extent of any impact. And so Mike's suggestion was that along with the proposed rule revisions, we receive a statement from a brief statement from the Office of General Counsel, which in essence would describe what it is that the General Counsel's office is approving, and according to which criteria the determination was made that the proposed provisions were sound. This statement might also state how the rules were either different or similar to what other campuses do with similar procedures and policies. That way, even though we know the Office of General Counsel reviews all rule changes prior to them coming before us for approval, we could act on rule revisions in a more informed manner. Again, I want to emphasize that we're not looking for a treatise, we're just looking for a brief statement. I think that's correct, Mike, in the spirit of what you were suggesting. Senior Vice President Merritt said that her staff would work with the Office of the General Counsel to develop a good process, and we all agreed that this would help us to make more responsible action, and we'll look forward to seeing the process instituted in the upcoming months. We then moved on to take action on the contract extension for the Milwaukee College Preparatory School, which we originally approved in 2002 as the Marva Collins Preparatory School. I am confident that most of you were able to review the evaluation summary for this charter school and will have perceived what an outstanding school this was. I think that the entire committee was excited about the results that have been produced by this wonderful, wonderful charter school. As Bob Catman, Director of the Office of Charter Schools at UWM, told us yesterday, this is what we wish all children in Milwaukee and the nation could have for a school. Situated in one of Milwaukee's most troubled and poorest neighborhoods, and serving a population that is 99% African American, this school has some of the best test scores in the city, if not the state. In fact, in the most recent test scores released just this past week, the Milwaukee College Preparatory School has exceeded all other MPS schools. But the test scores are the result of a great culture for learning, with a wonderful and active board, an outstanding principal, and the students who are motivated to learn. It was our great pleasure to extend the school's contract for another 5 years, which is the maximum extension that can be given. The committee agreed that we will have a tutorial on charter schools at our October meeting, something that was proposed last year by former committee chair Regent Burmaster. This would help us understand how the charter schools under UWM's oversight differ from other charter schools, both public and private, and what precisely UWM's role is in relationship to the schools it charters. With this information, we will better understand our role as regents in reviewing and acting on recommendations to either approve charter schools or to extend contracts for current ones. We then moved on to progress report on UW Systems Waukesha study. Let me summarize the salient points from our discussion yesterday on the UW Systems Waukesha study, and I must say that the feedback that I got from those in attendance, not just those who presented and my fellow colleague regents, but those who were in the audience, was that this was a really, really healthy, invigorating, productive, and value-added conversation. Those of you who missed it, oh well. Anyway, it was indeed a productive discussion. Executive Senior Vice President Don Mash reviewed some of the background of this complex issue and emphasized that the goal was to determine how the UW system could add value to Waukesha County as it grew, while being cognizant of the system's financial constraints. He presented on behalf of President Riley the commitment to develop and have up and running 2 new 4-year high-demand programs by next fall, 2007, at UW Waukesha. Which programs and which institution or institutions will offer them have yet to be determined, but the committee welcomed this news. He also mentioned the ongoing study of the Waukesha options that Chancellors Wilson and Santiago were charged to undertake. And at this point, 3 options remain on the table: merger, a 4-year institution in Waukesha County, and a university center approach in which collaboration between UW-Milwaukee and UW-Waukesha would increase. The Waukesha Study Group, as Dr. Mash called it, consisted of the 2 chancellors, the chief academic and chief financial officers from both UWM and the UW colleges, and the dean at UW-Waukesha. Its future composition will also include 2 UW system administration officials from the financial and the programmatic arenas. In response, and this is, of course, to ensure that the system-wide implications of any option are also taken into consideration from the inception. In response to several of our questions, Dr. Mash clarified that a new building is not related to delivering additional programs, so that idea is not a part of ongoing deliberations. Chancellor Wilson then informed us that the study group has already met several times, and although charged to develop a fiscal analysis of the options on the table, they quickly realized that they needed to first agree on a common set of assumptions, both financial and programmatic, before they could cost out the options for expanding baccalaureate education to Waukesha County. They have done this and will now proceed to conduct a full-scale fiscal analysis of the major options. Their analysis will take into consideration the input from the WECAM reports we've all been receiving these past few months. Chancellor Wilson announced a November 15th deadline for getting the fiscal analysis to President Riley. President Riley will then make a recommendation to the board. We pressed for that recommendation to come as soon after November 15th as possible, preferably at the December board meeting. We had the good fortune yesterday to have 4 student leaders from UW-Waukesha sit in on our committee meeting, and I might add they stayed for the entire time. So they were examples of the fortunate ones. Student Government President Alan, is it Stager? Stager? Let's say Stager. Made an eloquent presentation on the fly, so to speak, but from the heart, on a couple of key points that bear repeating. First, he expressed concern that there have been few opportunities for student input, and certainly nothing systematic into the deliberations of his campus's future. Second, he noted how important UW-Waukesha's Gateway mission was to him and his fellow students, a point echoed by a number of the students who were also present. Students attend UW-Waukesha, like the other UW colleges, because it is affordable and accessible and allows them to better develop their academic skills so that they can successfully transfer to 4-year institutions or schools. He would hate, so he said, to see this mission compromised by turning the institution into a four-year campus. I think that statement and those points recognize the need to have student input sooner rather than later so that fact versus perception can be dealt with and brought to bear. I think everyone in the room heard the importance of involving students in these discussions at both Waukesha and Milwaukee. We were pleased to hear Chancellor Wilson's commitment to include student input in a structured way going forward. Let me reiterate the committee's appreciation to Executive Senior Vice President Mash for his contributions, as well as those of Chancellors Wilson and Santiago and their study group. And I might add that both Chancellors Wilson and Santiago were not only present but engaging in conversation with members of the Education Committee on points that were raised about this matter. As expressed yesterday, and as we move forward and await the fiscal analysis and the recommendation from President Riley, it behooves us all to remember that the Waukesha study affects not only the UW colleges and UWM, it also impacts the well-being of the UW system as a whole and the students and citizens for whom we serve throughout the state. Our last area, but not least, was the report of Senior Vice President Merritt. The committee meeting included her report, which actually covered 3 reports: the annual program planning and review report, the 2006 UW System Research and Public Service Report, and the 2005 report on undergraduate drop rates. The latter 2 reports are legislatively mandated, although whether they are necessary and worth the staff time spent preparing them remains a matter of debate. The annual program planning and review report was given by Associate Vice President Ron Singer, who reviewed the program planning and approval process from start to finish and also gave an overview of academic program activity across the UW system. It is clear that by the time the Regents see and act on new academic programs, there has been a whole lot of work and interaction by the proposed institution and UW systems administration. And even though we approve new programs with some frequency, the systems program array is actually remarkably stable and has been over some period of time. We have between 1,120 and 1,200 programs at any given time for the last several decades. We also learn that all appearances or accusations to the contrary, there is a remarkably low level of duplication across the system. The vast majority of programs are only offered at one campus. Now, here's a trivia question. There is only one program offered at every one of our campuses. Anyone want to guess? And if you know, because you were there yesterday, you can't participate in this little trivia. Anybody want to guess?
Nursing.
Nursing? Nah. Not education, nah. One more guess. Huh?
Psychology.
Yes, ding, 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 it's psychology. So anyway, Chancellor Wells pointed out that the UW system has the least unnecessary program duplication of any other state he's ever worked in. And this gave us pause given our quest to increase the number of baccalaureate degree holders in Wisconsin. In other words, the point that was made and did give us reason to think about this is that there may be some necessary duplication that would be of benefit. Say, for example, because we're trying to meet a need from a delivery of professionally trained individuals based on what the economy needs. I guess I didn't say that right, but you all know what I mean. So, anyway, something to think about. So, my fellow regents, I have then 8 resolutions approved yesterday by the Education Committee that I now present as consent agenda items for action. Resolution 11C, Paren 1, authorizing the BS in microbiology at the UWM. Resolution 11C, Paren 2, authorizing the BS in health sciences at UW Stevens Point. Resolution 11D, Paren 1, approving the amendments to the UW Whitewater faculty personnel rules. Resolution 11D2, approving the amendments to the UW Extension faculty personnel rules. Resolution 11E, authorizing the extension of the charter school contract for the Milwaukee College Preparatory School. Resolution 11F, authorizing the recruitment of a provost vice chancellor at UW Eau Claire. Resolution 1H2, Paren 2, accepting the 2006 Research and Public Service Report for submission to the Joint Committee on Finance. And Resolution 1H, Paren 3, accepting the 2005 report on undergraduate drop rates for submission to the Joint Committee on Finance. Mr. Chairman, wait. I wait on that, right? Okay.
No, this is you're asking this be a consent agenda?
Yes, I am.
You've made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a request to remove any item from the consent agenda? Regent Loftus.
I want to comment on the Long Trust
Study report?
but I don't think that is a part of this motion.
No, we can do that. Regent Bradley.
Yes, I'd like to remove 11C2.
Any other requests? Seeing none on the consent agenda with one removal, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Consent agenda passes. Now I need a motion on 11C, 1.1.c, parent, student, parent. May I please have a motion? It's been moved. Is second?
Second.
And second. Discussion. Regent Bradley.
I'm sorry that I wasn't able to attend the Education Committee meeting yesterday, but I wonder if there's somebody from UW-Stevens Point familiar with the program? Virginia? If you would mind, I've got a couple of questions on this. Being from this area of the state, I realize the need for more baccalaureate degree holders in the health sciences. We've had an expansion of hospitals, major healthcare network providers in central and northern Wisconsin. But I don't understand, people are going to have a bachelor's degree if they get this degree, and they're going to be studying pre-physical therapy and pre-occupational therapy. But are they going to graduate and be able to sit for board exams in physical therapy, for example?
They would go on for additional work in programs in physical therapy or occupational therapy beyond that, as they do from we already have pre-occupational therapy and pre-physical therapy as programs at the university. These are just going to be a couple of tracks under the larger Bachelor of Science in Health Sciences program.
So are we going to, through this program, are we going to likely have more physical therapists available for these institutions to hire in central Wisconsin?
That's entirely likely, but part of this, part of the rationale for this program is that we will provide more opportunities in other areas besides the two pre-programs that we already have. And we have lots of students who are wanting to go on either into graduate programs or directly into, more likely directly into a variety of healthcare professions, including work in administration or insurance, fields like that.
My second comment is on the use of technology and distance education. I get a lot of comments from the people who sit on the boards of these hospitals in the area that UW-Stevens Point, the region that UW-Stevens Point serves. And, you know, I think there are 8 to 10 hospitals in that area. And what they are talking to me about is that a lot of the people who need some of this training can't go to Stevens Point, can't be on that campus. And in your materials, you report about the fact that courses are being designed to be easily converted to web-based hybrid and distance education format. And I'd like to say that rather than just say, we'll sit back and wait, and if there's demand, we'll look into it, but rather that you would go out there and seek opportunities to make this available so that the students can respond to the opportunity rather than wait for the students to present you with the opportunity.
That's a really good point, Regent Bradley. And our College of Professional Studies, in which this program will be housed, is offering numerous online courses already. And I know that there's a commitment to the adult learners in the area, and that distance delivery is one of the primary ways of meeting those. So there will be a lot of attention given to this, and I will also pass along the word to those in the program that they may want to make sure that that's up front and not something we come to later.
Well, good. And I would say, if this proves, I'm going to support this. Part of the package is a 5-year review. And I would say that I would hope that members of the board would definitely be looking for demonstrations that UW-Stevens Point got out into these communities and did make contacts with not only the UW colleges that are in your region, but also the technical schools that are in your regions, and that this is really going to be one of the things we look at for the success of this program.
One of the things that was clear in the presentation yesterday is that we have a very active partnership already with North Central Technical College up there, and the first thing that is going to happen as soon as the program has been approved is that we will go into major articulation activity with them, and to a lesser extent with Midstate, which doesn't have nearly as many of the healthcare programs that North Central Technical does. But they have a great working relationship already with North Central Technical, and we're looking forward to codifying some of the work that's already begun in informal discussion.
Well, if this passes, I'm going to call Jerry Whitburn and Merrill and say, don't worry, we've responded to the Merrill Hospital's needs, and get off my back.
We'll try to keep them off your back.
See any other comments? Vote on the motion for 1.1 C decimal parent 2 and a parent. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report, except to say that the meeting of the Education Committee adjourned at 3:45 p.m. And again, I thank you, Regent Salas, for letting me go ahead.
I have a question, if I may, to Mr. Davis.
Okay.
Yes.
We have just approved the proposal for our charter school, and I recall that at the meeting at Green Bay, there was a discussion about reviewing the multiple standards for the charter schools. At that time, what was on the board was the standards set by the Department of Public Instruction and those that we set. Was there any discussion in your committee on this, or do you plan to have that discussion in the future?
Right, and as I mentioned in my report, we do intend to have a full conversation, instructive tutorial, if you will, about charter schools at our October meeting.
Wonderful.
Yep,
Thank you very much.
most definitely. October. Don't we have a meeting in October? Yeah. I'm so sorry, we did.
I'm going to go around the room.
I just wanted to comment on the discussion we had on UW Waukesha. I found that the group considering things didn't seem that broad-based. I know a couple are going to be added. You have an area of the state that's sort of fast-growing high school population, regardless of what it is statewide, will be geometrically increased in this area of the state. I mean, you'd like to have some demographer on this group, someone that was familiar with the census and what's going on there. High school guidance counselors. I'm reminded of when they went through the fight in Madison as to whether to move MATC out of downtown, and how wrong everyone was. I mean, you have MATC now as sort of this University of Wisconsin feeder school, among other things. You have students out there with UW-Madison IDs. You have private institutions now clustering around MATC because students go back and forth. That's where the transportation is. That's where you need to be. So I would hope that in addition to students and the high school community in this area, that we really look at what the future is for this area as far as population and the type of students. And one thing that is important, even if it is not decided that this would be a four-year institution, the exercise, just going through the exercise of how that would be accomplished would be of great value to the new chancellor and to the board, because there it's who owns the buildings, who replaces the revenue from the local area, how would one buy these buildings, the physical limitations. So I would hope that
we have enough resources in this group that exercise be one that would allow us to look at it again in the future, should we need to.
Just let me follow up on this. His recommendations of including more people, who's doing that? Who makes that decision? Is that
The
President Riley?
I guess Riley does.
Okay. That was
Right.
his question.
Right.
Regent Crane?
There were two things I wanted to mention out of the committee, which I am very pleased to participate in. It was a very good day yesterday. I want to mention something about the charter school discussion. What we heard about the school that was reviewed yesterday was certainly very impressive and outstanding, and was very logical in terms of the process that has gone on in terms of approving that extension of the contract. I too want to say, though, that I am very interested in the discussion that we're going to have about what the reasons and appropriate role is for the university system and charter schools. Because I assume that has implications that could relate beyond Milwaukee, and I'm hoping that will be something more than a briefing, and be also something that will give us a full opportunity of discussion. I think that's an important thing because of the picture of public education in the state at all levels. The other comment that I wanted to make was that I found the discussion very interesting about the approval of programs and the process. That was really very very instructive and was very useful. And one of the things that I alluded to yesterday, and that I've thought about a little bit more than that, is the role of the university system itself in long-range planning as to what kinds of programs and degrees and we ought to be offering over from a statewide basis. I thought that it was very clear that much of it, if not most of it, and Cora appropriately pointed out that a lot of this has to do with financial realities today, comes from campuses themselves. But it seems to me that the system itself needs a long-range planning about where we see the statewide needs and opportunities for education and maybe being a part of stimulating that in ways that perhaps that's happening a lot already, but I would like to know that would seem to be a system responsibility.
Any other
Respond quickly. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, just quickly to Regent Crane. I think that's right, Regent Crane, and I think the proposals in the operating budget that you passed yesterday for nursing and for teacher education are instances where working with the campus system as a whole is looking ahead, trying to fill needs that we think are there now or will increase in the future. But I think we could do a lot more of that. We have had some problems just with the staffing level to be able to do that in a way that has any credibility to it. But I think it's a good reminder that we need to be in that business.
Regent Burmaster.
I'm very pleased to hear that the committee wants to have the full board session on charter school law in Wisconsin, because it is very confusing. And also the funding related to charter schools is something that I think it is very important for the entire board to understand, how two our charters are funded differently than other charters. And so we are planning for October. Is that?
Just to clarify, I was proposing, and what we discussed as a committee member meeting was that we're going to have an education committee matter relative to this tutorial.
Before a full board? Okay.
So that's
right.
what's going to be in October.
We'll schedule.
Yeah, the only urgency in scheduling, and we'll check, is that before another proposal for a new 2-hour charter might come to the board, given our discussion last year in Green Bay, I think it's very important that we have a full board understanding of this before we would be asked to vote on another new. And even the contract extension, I think it's very important. So, and there's a schedule for that, so we can look and work it through, but we do need to schedule it early this year.
Thank you for the information. Any other comments? Okay, moving on to the report of the Physical Planning and Funding Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Physical Planning and Funding Committee convened in our modest facilities, if I may say so. The minutes of the June committee meeting were approved. The committee first considered item 13B, which requests authority to sell the UWM Milwaukee's chancellor's residence in Shorewood, Wisconsin. It would require a significant investment of private funds to upgrade the house to meet ADA accessibility requirements, so it could be used for public functions. Now, the original resolution that was mailed to you for this item, or that is for item 13B, reads as follows: that upon the recommendation of the UW Chancellor and the President of the University of Wisconsin System, authority to be granted to sell the Chancellor's residence property, approximately 8,500 of an acre, located at 4430 North Lake Drive, Shorewood, Wisconsin, at a price not less than the average of 2 appraisals. This is the language that we all received late last week prior to this meeting. Now, after discussing this resolution, the committee requests that the resolution be revised to include the additional statement. And may I just point out to you in your folders that were made available to you this morning that you now have this revised resolution in your package, and you might want to pull it out as I refer to it. In addition, the net proceeds of the sale shall be held as a trust fund of the board until a campus plan is presented, subject to the board approval regarding disposition of those funds, including consideration of whether or not UW Milwaukee should have an official chancellor's residence. So long as the principal remains as a trust fund, the earning on such funds shall be provided to UW Milwaukee for university purposes. Now, Mr. President, this revised provision would allow us, that is, the Board of Regents, to determine whether we want to provide housing for future chancellors. If we do, and we might want to, as a recruiting tool for future chancellors, the funds would be available in trust. Now, it is my understanding that because the Physical Planning Committee revised this resolution, I cannot place it on the consent agenda. So thus, this revised version was unanimously approved by the committee, and I now move adoption of revised resolution 13B.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion, second, and discussion. Well, I have a question, and I'm aware of the change. We discussed this. But if you're, I understood that you wanted to say hold it. You may need we may need it for recruiting. You may need a home. And if so, in theory, we would either have that home if we didn't sell it, or these funds. And since it may be 5, 10 years from now, why aren't we allowing the funds to accumulate to equal what it would have accumulated had it not been sold? Why are we spending the income? Just a question.
We're not spending the income, we're spending the yield. Are you referring to that, the earnings as such?
Yeah.
Well, we want to be, the original proposal would have allowed the campus to access to those proceeds, and we don't agree with that. We think that we should be ultimately responsible for that, but we think it's wise and proper for them to use the earnings as such, or that is the yields for their own particular needs.
I guess what I meant was I thought that we wanted to reserve the funds until we decided if there should be a replacement home or needed it for recruiting. Then why shouldn't we allow the funds to accumulate and earn at least inflation so that we don't have less funds? And if just a question, had anybody discussed that?
Well, we discussed, no.
How much money is it? Roughly.
we are purposely not publicly discussing what the average of the two appraisals is.
Well, give it to me within 100,000. I mean, is it a million? Is it 500?
It's more than 1.3 million,
All right.
less than 2 million.
It's on the
Okay, that's fine. I can understand those numbers. That's a lot of income to be dispersed.
I think David's point is a good one. If the house were not sold, it would be accruing value at the rate probably in that part of Shorewood at 10% a year. Lake property is just really growing, as Chuck knows, very quickly.
I don't live on the lake.
And Chuck,
I want to make it perfectly clear, I do not live on the lake.
Chuck's wife
I live near.
Chuck's wife told me she's very interested in that.
Something like a contract.
Go back to work.
That's a substantial amount of money, and if you were, and I think it's great that you guys thought about a replacement possibility, but if your replacement possibility is of the general quality of this house, then to deprive that fund of the accrual really would be a blow 5 years from now or 8 years from now, whenever that might become necessary. I think it's something to think about.
Virgin Bartel, would you comment on that?
I'm a member of that committee, and I just wanted to point out two things. One is that I am told by Mr. Miller that all of the Chancellor's residences that the system owns have been donated, that none of them have been purchased. So it would be a departure from our procedures if we were to go out, take the proceeds, and purchase a residence. Secondly, the Chancellor indicated that there is a possibility he would like to use the earnings on these proceeds for scholarships. We thought that was a good use of the proceeds, and that's why we approved the allocation of the earnings to the campus's request.
Let's go this way. You have that look like you want to say
No,
that.
not at all. I'm trying to catch up with where I'm still on your documents there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Regent Lodge.
Well, I noticed this as well, and I'm glad you brought it up. I have a lot of experience with the State Department system of donated mansions and owning buildings that you sell only to find out that God, you wish you wouldn't have sold that building. So you sell this, you put the money in the bank and what, I don't know, earn 5%. You leave it there and the value of the house on the lake, doubles in 10 years. I mean, that's one thing to think about. But am I to understand that the Chancellor has to use these proceeds for scholarships? And they are his discretion?
No, that Chancellor Santel, would you like to?
Yeah, the disposition of the uniform is not to be used for scholarships per se. You should also note the university's other property, 2 other residences are used as administrative positions right now. One is on alumni house and 0.5%. Both could be converted into future chances. So it's not necessarily the case that the income borrowed from this property may be used to purchase new property. I should also point out the university spends on average about $40,000 a year just to maintain this particular property. So it is expensive for us.
My comments weren't in any himself, I think for sure. Tom had the other. I was really focusing on this. If you needed it to replace something later.
Chancellor Santiago, I take it there are not any conditions on the gift, such as there was in Madison on that residence.
Yeah, they're not.
They're not at
In Madison, what are we doing with? Well, I know what we're doing. We're getting contributed funds to fix it. That's a different situation.
And those funds, Mr. President, should be noted, are private funds.
Yeah, those are.
Yes, that is correct.
Well, we have a motion in front of us. Yes.
has there been any effort made to get private funds to at least maintain the property and perhaps use it for something else? So that if Regent Loftus...
The property is state-owned, it's not owned by our foundation, so there is a degree of, but I think if the property were owned by the foundation, then it would be privately supported, but it's not state, donated to the state.
Then I have a different question to Pat Brady. Is there any issue with the state-owned property and holding the funds in trust and still distributing income from it for operational reasons versus holding it in trust for a substitution?
Well, I think we can. I think we can hold it in the trust fund and distribute the income for the benefit of the institution. But you know, because it's at the boards, it would be held in the board's trust fund, so it's really public money in a public fund.
I guess the answer is no.
There's no restriction on the use of the gift.
Okay. Any other comment? We have a resolution in front of us. All right, we'll vote on the resolution. That is Resolution 13B. 13B. As amended. Well, it's 13B, not as amended. It hasn't been amended. It's the one we have in front of us. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No. No.
All right. I'd like a roll call vote.
Regent Bartel?
Aye.
Regent Bradley?
Aye.
Regent Burmaster?
No.
Regent Connolly-Kiesler?
Aye.
Regent Crane?
Aye.
Regent Keane?
No.
Regent Davis?
Yeah, aye. Yeah.
Regent Loftus?
No.
Regent Pruitt?
Aye.
Regent Randall?
Yes.
Regent Rosenzweig?
Yes.
Regent Salas?
Yes.
Regent Seminis?
No.
Regent Smith?
Aye.
Regent Spector? Regent Walsh?
Aye.
There are 12 ayes and 4 noes.
Thank you. The motion passes. You want to continue?
Yes, continuing, Mr. President, the following two resolutions were unanimously approved by the Fiscal Planning and Funding Committee are now presented as consent agenda items. Resolution 13C brought by UW Oshkosh requests authority to purchase property for administrative office use to relieve overcrowding in Dempsey Hall, and Resolution 13D requests authority to construct various facility maintenance and repair projects at UW-Madison and UW-Platteville. These projects will replace 40-year-old windows, restore tennis courts to an acceptable condition, improve existing greenhouses to meet building code requirements, and address storm water drainage deficiencies. These two items were passed unanimously by the committee, and I now move adoption of Resolution 13C and 13D.
All right, that's a motion for consent agenda. Is there any request to remove any item from the consent agenda? Seeing no request on the vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. President, Assistant Vice President David Miller reported that the Building Commission approved about $49 million for projects at their June and July-August meetings. The funding breakdown for those projects is $36 million from general fund supported borrowing, $6,800,000 from program revenue, and $3.5 million for gifts and grant funds. The committee adjourned to closed session to discuss the naming of a facility. And Mr. President, this concludes the report of the Physical Planning and Funding Committee.
Thank you, Regent Salas, and thank you also for picking up on that house sale and the solution you came up with. The moment we've been waiting for. Regent Pruitt.
Try to make it worthwhile for you, Mr. President. The reshaped Business, Finance, and Audit Committee met. We mourned the loss of Regent Loftus to the Education Committee and wished him Godspeed. And celebrated the addition of Regent Burmaster to our ranks.
Thank you.
We were also joined by Regent-in-Waiting Shields, and we look forward to him taking that last part of his title off sometime soon. We're also pleased to have beaten back the insurgency from physical planning of trying to claim our meeting space. Once again, celebrated the fact that we were meeting in not room 1912 and 20 in Van Nuys Hall. The committee voiced its support for funding resolutions in support of the Veterans Tuition Remission Grant and the Hold Harmless Tuition Grants. These two important programs, which are expected to be included in the biennial budget of the Wisconsin Higher Education Aids Board request, and they will be presented at the end of my report as consent resolutions. We also heard from Al Christ, Associate Vice President for the Office of Human Resources, who provided us an update on criminal background checks and noted that the current practices have been reviewed and guidelines are being drafted for implementing a criminal background check policy for the entire UW system. The system is assured that each institution in the meantime is conducting criminal conviction checks that are required by state and federal laws. Regent Smith asked what the current policy is concerning these checks. Associate Vice President Chris stated that currently each campus has its own policy and the UW system is still in process of developing guidance on establishing and implementing policies on a system-wide basis. A final draft policy will be presented for the committee approval at the December 2006 board meeting, with implementation expected in January 2007. We then moved to a discussion led by Assistant Trust Officer Doug Herr on UW system trust funds related to tobacco interests and tobacco-related holdings. Most of these funds are invested through large, broad-based commingled mutual funds whose portfolios contain only a very small fraction of tobacco-related investments. There is, I think, a quite interesting and thorough and thoughtful presentation within your materials that was developed by the trust fund folks, and I'd encourage you to take a look at it if you haven't already. Although there was not a consensus, and indeed there were some pretty serious reservations offered about such an idea within the committee as to whether or not to divest in tobacco interests. The committee will continue to look at alternatives on this issue, and we would, I think, speaking for the committee, welcome any input and suggestions from other board members as to whether or not this is an area that we should proceed in some point in the future. Mr. Herr then presented an informational report on what other universities and pension funds are doing in regards to divestment of companies with ties to the Sudan and some of the complexities involved in this issue. As we all know, in the Darfur region of the Sudan, militias acting in cooperation and coordination with the Khartoum government in a pretty widespread and systematic way are killing, raping, and displacing members of indigenous tribes. As a result of that, and recognizing the reality of that, the committee adopted a resolution, which is in your Regent materials, that prohibits investment of separately managed accounts in companies doing business in Sudan. Current U.S. sanctions apply to U.S. entities, and provides that where invested assets are in commingled accounts, letters will be sent to investment management firms to advise them of our policy and suggest alternative investment policies. Mr. President, the Business and Finance Committee is, I think, historically has been very cautious, circumspect, and judicious in applying socially responsible investment principles to our holdings. We obviously have a clear fiduciary responsibility and obligation to seek the best return on those investments, and there is validity to the slippery slope argument as to where we begin and where we end. Perhaps the best model is the South Africa divestment model, which suggested that the compelling purpose of divestment in apartheid in South Africa was to put pressure and compel action from that country and that government. I think it was the belief of the committee that when the United States Secretary of State declares that there is a government-sponsored and supported genocide going on, the slippery slope argument gets trumped by more urgent concerns. And the committee believes this is the right decision if we are to be humanitarian and responsible stewards of university funds. So on behalf of the Business and Finance and Audit Committee, I move the adoption of Resolution 1.2D2, Sudan divestment.
Second. Moved and seconded that 1B, 1.2, parent 2, and a parent be passed. Any discussion? Regional Office. Go ahead.
Well, I'd like to know the companies that are affected, some staff.
I think, Debbie, I think we had there is a list in your materials, I thought, that included that. I don't know if the specific companies are referenced or not.
Okay, well, while you're finding that,
Regional Office, you can see on...
Or you use... Okay, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if you would look, you can see on page 6 and 7 of the background materials, there are indications of companies that the University of California Board of Regents divested in that are identified. And I think, I don't know if we have the specifics, but we can get that for you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So that University of California list is likely. And then could you comment further on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th paragraph, where it states, otherwise abets acts of genocide or quote-unquote ethnic cleansing occurring in that country. How does ethnic cleansing get in with genocide? Is there some legal, there's certainly a very legal impact when you use the word genocide. And we're using genocide here, hiding behind the Secretary of State's comment. I mean, there are other considerations when you use ethnic cleansing. So I just wondered if anyone had a comment on genocide or ethnic cleansing. Genocide is death. Ethnic cleansing can be removal of populations.
I think that, in putting this resolution together, I don't think there was an assumption that one necessarily, I don't think there was probably a great deal of sort of added thought about that other than a sort of a further description of what is going on in the Darfur region, and as opposed to a separate and distinct.
Isn't ethnic cleansing the specifics of genocide? Not all genocide is ethnic cleansing, but all ethnic cleansing is genocide.
So genocide is killing.
I don't think so. Okay. I thought ethnic cleansing was true. Regent Bartel?
I have a question. What is the State of Wisconsin Investment Board and other socially responsible investors doing on this issue?
We were informed by Doug Hurd that SWIB has begun a review of their policies, and I think a month or two ago asked our folks for the information that they prepared for us. So without characterizing what they're doing, they have not done anything to this point, but it would appear that it is under review by SWIB, and as you probably saw in your materials, there have been a number of states that have moved, and we would be joining a still relatively small number of university systems in this effort.
Regent Simmons.
I would just like to thank Chairman Pruitt on moving forward on this. This is a very important issue in our global society, and it's important that we as a University of Wisconsin system speak out against the genocide that is happening in Sudan. And this has been a very important issue in which a lot of groups, from student groups to Christian groups to Jewish groups to Muslim groups, have joined in concert in speaking out against the genocide in Sudan and also speaking out in favor of divestment. And I'm very proud and I'm very hopeful that the board today will take a stand in divestment for Sudan today.
Regent Law?
Well, I mean, it's an important thing to keep in mind, that at least keep in mind we're doing this, that we're lumping genocide and ethnic cleansing.
Regent Law, may I, Mr. President?
Oh, are you done? Well,
No.
Did you want to interrupt him about this?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. No, I thought he was done.
No. No, so that's...
If you wore a tie, you wouldn't be doing this sort of thing.
I'm more comfortable than you.
Okay, I mean, that's my first point. There is, of course, an international treaty on genocide. We know it.
Could you speak up, Richard Martin?
I just am trying to make the point, Peggy, that we understand that we are using these two items as one behavior we will not tolerate, and that is genocide or ethnic cleansing. Genocide, of course, is an international treaty. William Proxmire, our senator, gave a speech on the floor of the Senate every day of his career to get this country to recognize. Ethnic cleansing is a little different. My next question, Chairman Pruitt, is where we will send a letter to management firms requesting that the manager consider either adopting a Sudan free investment policy, and if the manager introduces a comparable separate Sudan free fund, we would shift our assets in the existing funds to that newly available Sudan free fund. Are there such things?
I believe that, again, I don't know, Doug, Debbie, but I believe that that there are not currently Sudan free funds that fall into this, but I think the belief and the hope is obviously as pressure continues to grow on these commingled investment funds, that as is always the case, the market dictates. And I think the hope certainly of this resolution is by having us join other university systems and other places, that the creation of those funds will be soon to follow.
Regent Sells?
I just wanted to know, to take a stab at the difference. I think Regent Loftus is correct that genocide and ethnic cleansing are not synonymous, although they do refer to extermination of people as a whole. We've seen in Africa, I think over the last 4 decades, both, or that is genocide and ethnic cleansing. We saw ethnic differences in Nigeria 30 or 40 years ago. We saw most recently in Rwanda, where we have 2 distinct groups, one attempting to exterminate another for the control of that particular region. In this one, I think you can't say that it's both, because the extermination involves swarms of individuals who are coming from a particular region and removing natives in that native region that they had since time immemorial been located. So I think in this particular case you can use both genocide and ethnic cleansing, because it is both an extermination of a people, and it is one ethnic group, and with very definite religious leanings, exterminated another. So I think in this case, although the terms are not synonymous, I think in this case they're both accurate, in my estimation.
Just a second, let me go around. Anybody else? Regent Lopez.
Well, 2 points. Ethnic cleansing, as we've established, is not the same as genocide. When we were in Bosnia and Yugoslavia, we never used the word genocide. Never, ever. Ethnic cleansing was a basis for legitimacy there. But let me point out just something, and I'm certainly going to vote for this. In this area of Africa, this comes from my experience with the World Health Organization. You have the United Nations moving ethnic populations into certain areas for their protection. There's a lot of this going on where you're moving populations, they're not being killed. They're moving from where they were to where they were. No, that's not called ethnic cleansing, but you're moving ethnic populations. So, just so we know.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, now on the motion, which is before you and is, I'm sorry, 1 decimal 2 decimal D decimal parent 2 and a parent. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Chairman Pruitt.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assistant Trust Officer Herr briefly discussed the performance and significant changes in the trust fund investments for the period ending June 30th, 2006. Year-to-date performance is strong compared to the benchmark, and the Commodities Future Index Fund will be divested. Ron Yates, the Director of Office of Operations Review and Audit, came forward to give us a brief description of what is a new audit that his office is going to be performing on a review on the cost of textbooks. This is an issue that I think we all have probably seen in recent days and weeks is getting growing attention because of its direct relationship to the whole issue of affordability of a college education, not just in Wisconsin but across the country. I noticed yesterday that on the front page of the USA Today was a story about the mounting and growing concern about the cost of college textbooks. So the audit group is going to take a look at this and review, looking at 3 particular areas: identifying trends in college textbook costs, identifying approaches used by UW institutions to contain those costs, and identify approaches used elsewhere across the country to contain textbook costs. It's expected the work will take approximately 4 to 6 months. And the committee directed that the Office of Operations Review and Audit move forward with that formal review. Director Yates also updated the committee regarding the ongoing internal audits and reviews being performed by his office. He provided information on recent Legislative Audit Bureau audits, which will include statewide audit of implementation issues related to large information technology systems projects. Regent Rosenzweig suggested that the committee initiate an audit on the appointment benefits payroll system project. The committee will review this option at the October meeting. Mr. Yates summarized the recently completed program review of early return to work efforts at UW institutions. The report offers a number of recommendations to improve effectiveness and reduce costs. Vice President Durkin then gave us an update on total gifts, grants, and contracts for the 12-month period ending June 30th, 2006. That total was $1.1 billion, a decrease of nearly $55 million from the comparable period of the previous fiscal year. Much of the decline was due to large federal multiple-year awards that were received last year, the largest being the UW-Madison Ice Cube project. The committee discussed future goals and priorities. Vice President Durkin will develop a summary agenda for the committee's consideration. Representative Conley-Kiesler suggested a review of what other committees like ours in other boards in other states are doing to see what their agendas look like and see if we could pirate a few ideas as to issues that other like kinds of committees are looking at. The committee also expressed interest in reviewing recently approved policies to ensure that they are accomplishing their goals. As we all know, in the last few months, we have adopted, and dating back now year or more, we've adopted a number of these policies that I think the committee, and I assume the entire board, would be interested how they do. For example, the non-resident tuition policy, which has gotten a little bit of attention in recent months. I think the committee was anxious and has already sort of begun to schedule time later in the year to review with some of our campuses what the effect of lowering tuition for non-resident students at these very selected campuses would be. Similarly, the Return to Wisconsin pilot program that was passed by this board a number of probably well over a year ago now. The Midwest Higher Education Consortium pilot program. So we, down the road, the committee, I think, is interested in taking a look and helping to sort of lead the review, and then obviously report back to the entire board as to what we find, and hopefully offer additional sort of gist for conversation. Vice President Durkin also stated that a system-wide committee to review segregated fees is in the process of being formed and should come together in September, then slowed somewhat by the summer months. She noted that the state contract for online booking of travel was awarded to Fox World Travel. Vice President Durkin noted that the most recent meeting of university chief business officers included a presentation from an expert regarding increasing administrative efficiencies. Some of these ideas will be piloted at UW system campuses and then rolled out on a system-wide basis. The Business, Finance, and Audit Committee unanimously approved the following resolutions, which I now present as consent items. On behalf of the committee, I move adoption of Resolution 1.2B1, the Veterans Remission Grant, and Resolution 1.2B2, the Hold Harmless Tuition Grant.
We have a motion, we have a second. We have a motion and second on the consent agenda. Are there any items that anyone would like removed? Seeing none. Yeah, Regent Loftus.
I have a comment on the tobacco issue.
Okay, let us just do this. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Don't usually have that, but sometimes people like to discuss it. Although all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Are you done with your?
I am done with my report.
All right. Any other matters on this report?
Well, I would, since I'm no longer on the committee,
But you're always welcome.
I'll be over the horizon. I think it's no more difficult and probably, in my opinion, easier to address the tobacco issue than the Sudan issue. And I would hope that we have, until the committee comes up with a policy, we have a de facto policy, and that is that there is no research money coming to any of these institutions that we are stewards of from the tobacco industry, that there are no further investments by the funds that we control. That my hope is that we dispose of any that we do hold in a financially reasonable schedule, and that there are no gifts or grants accepted at any campus from the Grim Reaper or any of the little reapers that are disguised as other businesses. So I look forward to the committee's further deliberation.
Mr. President, that concludes our report.
Thank you. Regent Salas.
Yes, Mr. President, I wanted to make a comment on 1.2b, parenthesis 2, okay, or that is the Hold Harmless Tuition Grant. And I think it's very important to communicate to our stakeholders, in particular to our students who express concern about the modest tuition increases that we made yesterday, that we not only are we has the governor increase financial aid twofold, but in addition to his proposal on the covenant, there's two paragraphs here that I think we need to communicate to the public, and that is paragraph 4, or that is where it says that the Board of Regents believe additional grant aid is needed now for lower income students. This is very important, and I think it really represents the views of all of us as to the urgency to respond to the needs of families with children who qualify to our institution but cannot afford it. And then lastly, the last paragraph, and this is the language that originally came out of the chartering a new course, which you, Mr. President, were also a member of that committee. And we always viewed the Hold Harmless resolution as being, as noted in the last paragraph, and I read directly from this resolution that we have just passed, that this hold harmless provision is made on a dollar-for-dollar basis in increase for all qualified UW students. And again, this is very important for us to communicate so that our public knows exactly what is our position in regards to the overall package of financial aid that we're making available now and in the future with this covenant. Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you. And when you talk about the chartering, of course, some of the regents weren't involved in that. You might further describe that. You and I were on the same committee.
Yes, and this was in response to, this was initiated and recommended by President Lyle, and we were broken up into respective committees, and the committee where the whole harmless provision was a committee named Relations with the State, and we actually invited the legislature, the leadership of the legislature for a year period of time and engaged them in the need to deliberate on this provision. Unfortunately, when we proposed it in the 05-07 budget, they removed the financial aid package that went along with the tuition increases, and Governor Doyle saved the day by his veto pen providing more resources, but not all of the resources that we had initially recommended by the charter in the new course. We had initially recommended that we would offset these tuition increases on a dollar-by-dollar basis, as noted in the last paragraph of this resolution.
Thank you for the explanation. Regent Cook.
I was just going to thank Regent Salas for your continuing, and I think and clearly something that the entire board agrees with. I was struck yesterday by two numbers, that one out of the presentation by Professor Burkhart and one by President Riley, 80% and 70%. Dr. Burkhart said 80% of 8th graders want to go to college. President Riley points out that 70% don't. And I think, you know, this is a piece of the puzzle for the short term in providing sort of the gap between here and the covenant, which is clearly where we all want to go, and it's terribly important. Appreciate your comment.
Thank you. Any other comments on the report? Seeing none, are there any additional resolutions? Any communications, petitions, memorials?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sad to report something that many of the people in this room know, that Professor Leon Epstein died on August 1st as a result of injuries suffered in a fall in his home. He was a scholar of international repute. He was one of the founders, literally, of the political science department at UW-Madison. His PhD was from University of Chicago, but he grew up in Beaver Dam. To give you his range of interest, a year after he wrote the book Politics in Wisconsin, he published the book British Politics in the Suez Crisis. His breadth was amazing. I had the great privilege of having him as a professor, but he will be sorely missed. A great man and a great contributor to the university, and I hope that we mark his passing and contribution today.
Thank you.
I had him too.
So did I. So did I.
He didn't teach accounting, did he?
No, it's much higher level.
Higher level for it.
That's right, in Harvard. But he did do a wonderful job during the Vietnam problem.
Yes, he did.
We'll let the record show that we will issue an appropriate note. We will now take a 5-minute recess and adjourn an open session to go into closed session. Oh, I get to do this.
The conference after Rosenblatt College.
Yes, yes.
Would you be staying on to the closed session?
Yes, yes.
Okay. we'll make sure that that connection stays in place.
Is Gerard off?
Gerard did hang up.
Oh, okay. All right.
Closed session to consider a UW-Madison disciplinary matter as permitted by Section 1985-1A and F, and to consider a student appeal from a UW-Eau Claire decision as permitted by Section 1985-1F, and to consider with legal counsel regarding pending or potential litigation as permitted by Section 1985-1G, and to consider personal histories related to naming of a facility at UW-Whitewater as permitted by Section 1985-1F, all of the Wisconsin statutes.
Second. Okay, discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Regent Walsh?
Yes.
Regent Spector? Regent Smith?
Yes.
Regent Seminis?
Yes.
Regent Salas?
Yes.
Regent Rosenzweig?
Yes.
Regent Randall? Regent Pruitt?
Yes.
Regent Loftus? Regent Davis? Regent Keane?
Yes.
Regent Crane?
Yes.
Regent Conley Kiesler?
Yes.
Regent Burmaster?
Yes.
Regent Bradley?
Yes.
Regent Bartel?
Yes.
There are 14 ayes and no noes.
Gerard, are you there?
No, I guess Gerard hung up, and we've actually been off a lot. The only report we heard the entire report of was Regent Salas. Everybody else we got bits and pieces.
Which may say something about him and his report. Very elegant. Eloquent.
Are you saying that we've had mechanical difficulties?
We have had numerous mechanical difficulties. Now the problem will be if we get cut off again, they aren't going to know it because obviously they're not listening.
Yes,
we may or may not be here for the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't want to be in closed session with an open mic down there.
Right. So just so you know, we've done what we
Why don't we, can we turn him off if there's nobody there?
He is off. He came in and talked, he beeped in and just said, listen, we can't listen anymore. So
Okay.
if you get cut off again, you can try calling back or you can press *0 and that'll tell us that you've been disconnected. So.
Okay, as long as he's disconnected. First matter is the naming of Whitewater. That's a short matter, and I'd like to take it out of order.